welcome today to our Are You On Your Way to Burnout virtual boardroom that's been facilitated by HR Recruit and Hazel Anderson-Turner. My name's Jo Thompson and I'm a consultant for HR Recruit. I'm joined today by Hazel, who will introduce herself shortly. Hazel is going to explore with you what burnout is, how you can spot the signs of burnout, and ways that you can prevent burnout in yourself and in your teams. If you've got any burning questions during the session, then please put them into the chat box facility and we'll cover them as we go along. I'm now going to hand you over to Hazel, who will introduce herself and start the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. So welcome to this session. I will pop some slides up and you'll have access to these afterwards if you're kind of frantically taking notes or pictures. But yes, you will get them as well. So to start off, who am I? So I'm Hazel. I'm a business psychologist and an executive coach, and I specialise in resilience and burnout prevention. And this came from me experiencing burnout 7 years ago when I was head of workforce development across 3 different organisations. So my county council, in its wisdom, decided to bring together the shared services from the police service and the fire service. And we created this new team across the 3. And, you know, understandably, it was incredibly challenging. And I just had a baby. And within 18 months, I found myself experiencing strong symptoms of burnout. And this led me to leave the organisation and to start my own company and to focus on supporting people to who are going through the same kind of challenges that I was going through. And I say lucky enough, but when COVID hit, I had a contract with the NHS and I led a team who supported NHS staff through COVID. So we were delivering a lot of coaching that was focused at that time on resilience, but increasingly over the last couple of years, the focus has been on burnout prevention. So the majority of my work is with the NHS, supporting people to prevent burnout in themselves and in their team. So let's start with what is burnout. It's a term that has been thrown around quite a lot and it's, in a bit of a buzz recently. But I'd love to hear from you what words, phrases, symptoms, what comes up for you when I say the word burnout? What are we talking about? What is this thing called burnout? If you can pop in the chat or if you want to talk to me, please do. What are we referring to when we're talking about burnout? Yeah, absolutely. Flo and Philip, exhausted, exhaustion, short fuse, overwhelmed. Yeah, stressed, anxious, tired, frustration, absolutely lack of motivation, overwhelmed, stressed and exhausted. Yeah, maybe feeling undermined. Yeah, that could be one of the reasons why you're experiencing those burnout symptoms. Yeah, feeling like you can't cope. Absolutely. So let's have a look at the official definition. So the definition from the World Health Organization is that burnout is about chronic workplace stress. So we know that a little bit of a little bit of stress is good for us. So we know that, actually stress can be helpful to motivate us and to direct our attention and to get those kind of, those hormones where we need to, bring our best self to something. So a little bit of stress, if, for anybody that competes in a sport, we know is good. What isn't so good is chronic stress. So that is stress day after day after day, week after week after week, month after month, where we haven't been able to recover from it. So it's the chronicness of stress that is the issue. And in the 70s, Christina Malash and her team looked at what is this thing called burnout. They were seeing more and more of these symptoms coming up, and they came up with a helpful I guess a definition, a theory around burnout, that it was about these three things, and these are the three things that we're looking for. So firstly, as you identify this exhaustion, they were thinking about emotional exhaustion. We know about the interaction between emotional and physical exhaustion now, but it's when we get to that place where we have been giving and giving and giving, and we just feel like we don't have anything else to give. You know, if one more person asks me if I've got 5 minutes, I'm going to lose it. So it's just that sense that we just don't have anything else left. Secondly, feelings of cynicism and detachment. This is about our mind's protective mechanism. So what we're doing when we start to get a bit like detached and cynical about, you know, work that we did care about before, what we're doing is creating a bit of a barrier between us and it, because we recognize that it's hurting us in some way. So we might hear someone say, you know, I just don't care. I just don't care anymore. I might as well just work in a local garden centre. You know, I just can't care about work anymore. Or that cynicism might come through, where it might be like, oh God, you know, if only we didn't have customers, wouldn't it be great? Or, you know, the leadership don't care about me. So we get into that space of just feeling this real disconnection from something that used to be important to us. And then the third thing that you identified was that kind of sense of ineffectiveness, a sense of a lack of accomplishment, maybe like we're feeling like we're not coping. So what I might hear is, you know, I feel like I'm letting everyone down. I feel like I'm failing. I feel like I can't cope. And it is that whole, like, I just never get anything done. Like, I get something done and then something else comes in, and I just don't feel that sense that I'm achieving anything. So these are the three areas that we're looking out for if we're concerned about burnout. And I think the thing to recognize with this is that it's not a, you know, we're not burnt out and then we're burnt out. What it is it's a spectrum. Often when people say I've experienced burnout, like I would say, what I experienced was crisis point. Day to day, we're moving up and down this scale on those three elements. So we'll absolutely have days where it's just like, oh, I am full. But if we have healthy practices to recover from our day, from our week, if we have the time, if we're able to switch off, then we're able to kind of move that dial back to somewhere that feels a bit more manageable. So again, the thing to look out for is asking yourself or asking your team, where have you been? If you think about the last few months, where would you plot yourself? And that's the key that we're looking for. We're looking for a long-term pattern. And that's when, you know, if that long-term pattern is towards the burnout end, that's when we start to think, oh, actually, do I need some more help? There are different, I mean, so burnout, there are individual differences. So everyone's experience of burnout is slightly different. And I think I really like this way of describing that comes from Nick Petrie, who's a researcher in Australia. And they took the, you know, different degrees of burn into this space. And I really like this idea. So we might find that we're experiencing a bit of a first degree burn. So we're in a heavy period of stress. So maybe, you know, we're getting to year end, and we've got a change program going on in the background, and we've been asked for this big piece of work over here. And at home, we've got, you know, stuff going on as well. It's just kind of brought together in a perfect storm. We're feeling a bit overwhelmed and we're feeling a bit stressed, but we're still able to maintain working effectively. So we've got some practices that are still in place, and we're being able to kind of work as well as we can do. Second degree burn would be actually that stress has got chronic. That period, it got extended. Other things came in. We just weren't able to recover from our stress. Our sleep has been really affected. We haven't been able to recover from our day, from our week. What we found is that we have, because of the demands of our life, both at home and at work, we started neglecting the things that generally keep us well. So we're doing less, exercise, eating well. We're going to bed later. We're not seeing our friends. We're not getting involved in creative activities that we enjoy and that keep us well. So we're getting into this survival mode where the focus of our mind is head down, just keep the wheels on the bus, just keep going. And this was absolutely the place that I found myself in. And some of you might recognize this, where you are I just need to get to the end of the day. I just need to get to the end of the week. I just need to get to the end of the month or the year. So we're getting into that place of chronic stress. And then third degree, so this is the crisis point. So the mind and body start to shut down, but our body will often tell us things that we are closed down to for ourselves. We've got our blinkers on. We think we're coping. We're just kind of staying in control of a few things that we feel are important, but our mind, our body starts to tell us that things aren't quite right, and we start to find the cognitive load is too high. We're carrying too many things at a time. So simple tasks can suddenly seem unmanageable. Our emotions are suddenly unpredictable, so we can be snappy. So people around us might notice that there are changes in our behavior that we might not notice ourselves, because all we're doing, we are in survival mode, trying to keep those wheels on the bus. What's interesting hormonally is that when we experience stress, we get a release of adrenaline and cortisol going through our bodies. And the challenge with adrenaline and cortisol in particular, is that it inhibits oxytocin. And oxytocin is the hormone that connects us to others. So not only are we like head down, just gotta keep going, just gotta keep it together, we are so much less likely to ask for help. So often people can look back and be like, oh, if only I'd reached out. But there's a hormonal reason why you might not have reached out. And this is why I often talk about burnout prevention being a team sport, because it will be the people around you who will notice the change in your behavior. It will be the people around you who are probably best positioned to be like, hey, are you okay? Like, I've noticed that your behavior has changed. Is there anything that I can do to help? So that's what burnout is. Let's look at why it might happen. So in this model, what the researchers found was that burnout occurred when the demands of our roles outstripped our resources. Now, most of the burnout research pre-COVID focused on the workplace. So burnout is thought of as a workplace phenomenon. I think COVID taught us anything. It taught us that the interaction between home and work is really important to understand. So when we're thinking about demands, I would widen this model and say that the demands that we face are absolutely about the workplace and our home life. So what this says is burnout happens, or is more likely, when those job demands are bigger than the resources that we've got. And typically when we're thinking about job demands, we're thinking about, high workload. We're thinking about long working hours. We're thinking about people in positions where they feel like they've got low control. Control is massive in this. So if you feel like something in the organization is happening to you that you don't have any control over. If you don't have any control over your working hours, if you don't have any control over how you do your job, then that is much more likely that you're going to experience burnout. And the other one is values conflicts. And this is where I do a lot of my work, where something might happen in the organization or in their lives, wider lives, where they feel that a value has been challenged, and fairness comes up a lot. So if you perceive that something happened and it wasn't fair, you can really grab on and get really stuck in that place, and it'd be really hard to move on from that. And a lot of my coaching work supports individuals on how to hold your values lightly when they've been challenged, or how to work out how you resolve that feeling in yourself. But values conflicts is something that can also lead to burnout. And then on the resources side, rewards, obviously financial, but also that feeling that you're valued, that feeling that people care about you, that your work is appreciated. Support, so that might be in the workplace, your manager, your colleagues, that sense of psychological safety, that you feel that people have got your back. And then recovery, like I mentioned earlier, that ability to do good recovery and recovery that works for you. I know that, the periods where I've been in high stress situations, my mind, not so helpfully, convinces me that crashing out on the sofa, watching Netflix, eating giant chocolate buttons and drinking wine is the best way to recover. Actually, when I'm in a better place and I think about what does really help my recovery, actually, do you know what? Going for a walk, reading a book, I don't know, going and doing something fun. It doesn't have to be this kind of idea of, like how self-care gets this image where it's people having nice, baths with bubbles, and, it doesn't have to be that. Working out what recovery is for you is really, really important. And so these things, these resources can be a protector against burnout. So it's something I think really interesting for leaders to think about. What is it that they can do around those demands? Are there some things that they can support their team with around demands? But also, what is within my power around those resources? Particularly when, I feel like I don't have as much control over some of those job demands. So something that I say a lot is that in our current context, feeling burnt out is really understandable, but it's not inevitable. So burnout is absolutely about the interaction between an individual, your mind and your body, your personality, your preferences, your experience, everything that makes you you, and your context. So we know in some contexts, some people might burn out and some people might not. So we know that there are individual differences. We know from the research that the solutions to burnout absolutely need to sit in the contextual place. However, there are definitely things that we can do as individuals to keep ourselves well, even in difficult contexts. So we need to keep talking about what is it within our workplace that might be causing people to burn out, and what can we do about it? What can we improve? And also, as individuals, what is it that we can do for ourselves to help ourselves stay well? So I realize it's lunchtime, so some of you will probably be grabbing your lunch, so maybe you won't want to do an activity, but I want to just talk you through an activity that you can do for yourself. You can introduce to your team. It's a very, very simple activity, but it's something that just helps individuals to focus on keeping themselves well. So if you're with me and you've got a piece of paper, what I'd love you to do is to grab a piece of paper and draw a circle. And then I want you to divide that circle into 6. So 6 segments. Okay, and then when you've got those 6 segments, what I want you to do is to annotate them on the outside with 6 things that you know help you to stay well. They might be things that help you to recover. So for me, 2 of my things are running and seeing friends. I might also put, like I said, reading. What else keeps me well? 8 hours sleep. Not eating too much sugar. So annotate it with your things. What are 6 things that help you to stay well? Okay. Once you've got those 6 things, what I want you to do is to rate each one out of 10. So here I'm rating running 5 out of 10. So at the moment, I'm only able to go out running about half the time I'd like to, a couple of times a week. So I'm going to give it a rating of 5 out of 10. So it's a rating out of 10 for how much you're currently able to do that thing. So for seeing friends, it's January. Nobody's got any money. So I'm at 2 out of 10. So that's where I'm at with seeing friends. Okay. So I'm drawing a little line because I quite like a visual. So you can draw a line or put a rating in it. So if you do that for each of your 6, Joe, I hope you're doing this. Saying is I can only see you and Neil. So so a rating for each of those 6 out of 10. And then yeah, drawing a little line as well. And then once you've got that, I want you to pick just one of those segments that you would like to improve. So it might be the one that you rated lowest, or it might be one that you think, do you know what, if I can sort this one, I feel like it might help the others. Or it might be one where you say, that just feels the easiest. It's January. I'm just going to go with that one. And what I want you to do is to think about one thing, one action that could take you one stage up. So for this one, what would take me from a 2 out of 10 to a 3 out of 10 in relation to seeing my friends? So that might be that I message a friend in a minute and suggest that we go for a coffee. Or I could suggest we go for a run and then I get 2, but that's jumping ahead. But yeah, I could just message one friend and we're going to meet up. So just one action that's going to take you one level up. So we know that we're more likely to do something if we share it with other people. So I'm going to keep my expectations low because I know that's the key to happiness. But I would love it if you popped in the chat, if you are happy to, the one thing that you commit that you're going to go away and do that's going to help you with your resilience. So while I'm chatting away about what I love about this wheel, I would love it if even one person is brave enough to share the thing that they're going to take away and do in the chat box. So the power of this wheel, it seems really simple, doesn't it? What's really important about this wheel, so I could call myself a resilience expert and I could be like the Instagram, the TikTok people going, here's my top 10 tips for, staying resilient. They would be my tips about resilience. I really think that most of us know how to keep ourselves well in general. Sometimes we grab some different tips from different people, but I think generally the reason why we struggle is not because we don't know how to keep ourselves well. It's because life gets in the way or we forget. We're busy. And so what's great about this tool is that it brings it to your attention. So I would love it if you've got your wheel there in front of you. I would love it if you stuck it up on the wall and you maybe came back and checked in with it, like maybe once a week, once a month. It's keeping it in your attention. Oh, I can see things in the chat. This is exciting me. Right, where are we? Who was first? Practice mindfulness more. I love that, Jackie. Practice yoga and meditation. So again, I'm going to be picky now, but the key to this is finding something that will just take you one step up. So if you've got a goal like I'd like to meditate more, I'd like to do yoga and meditation more, maybe the step to better is I'm going to meditate for 2 minutes a day, or I'm going to go to yoga once a week. So try and make it as easy as possible for you. My same as yours, seeing friends. Oh, thanks, Karina. Making more effort to get to see them. Yeah. And again, you know, when we're busy, it's the thing where we suddenly turn around and go, oh my gosh, I haven't seen anyone for a few weeks. Walk and read daily. Yeah, brilliant, Flo. And again, maybe it is actually, do you know what? I'm going to walk and read for two days a week. Because I know actually it's easy for me to do on a Tuesday and a Saturday. I'm going to keep my expectations of myself low. Mandatory lunch breaks, yes. Brad, I love that. The CPD is not included, unless you were listening to it and walking around maybe. But yes, taking a lunch break. And again, think about how you can build up to that. So if you're in a place, I work a lot in the NHS where people are not taking any lunch breaks. So we start with, okay, we're going to take 50 minutes on a Monday, and we're going to start there and we're going to build up from it. Putting down devices that distract me, make proper time to read and have some quiet time. Brilliant. I love that. Putting devices in other rooms is brilliant. There was a research that said even when we have it turned upside down, if it's within our eye line, it still impacts us and distracts us. So we need to get the devices in a drawer or out the room. So yeah, lovely. Neil, I like that too. Taking a moment to say a prayer. And we know, you know, prayer, gratitude practice, meditation, all of these things that help connect us to what's important are really, really powerful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing those. And the reason why I was being a bit picky, because what I want to help you to do is to achieve these things. What often will happen with our mind is we get into a New Year's Day place, and you might have already experienced this. We're early in January, where you look at these 6 things and you're like, right, I want to be a 10 out of 10 at all of these. So I'm going to sign up to yoga. I'm getting back to the gym. I'm messaging all my friends. We're going to meet up. And then a few days later, you know, you get back into work and I don't know, the kids are playing up and you've got all these things that you need to organize, and life just happens and suddenly it feels like you're failing. So suddenly the wanting to keep yourself well becomes another stick to beat yourself with. And instead, what's really powerful about this approach is that it helps you to create sustainable change by starting really small. So one of my favorite habit change books is called Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, which is a brilliant name and really memorable, which is helpful. So Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. And what the research says is that if we can make it as small as possible, not only do we increase the chance that we're going to do it, but we help to build our confidence. It doesn't become a stick to beat ourselves with. What we do is we start, you know, doing more. So yeah, with my running, I might start with, one run a week. And then if I feel, hey, that was good, I enjoyed that run, maybe I'll go for a second one. And then I get to feel even better about myself. I feel like I'm winning at life because I've done more than I expected to do. When we set our expectations on ourselves too high, that's when it becomes another pressure, another stress. Whereas actually we want to be kind to ourselves, and we want to give ourselves the opportunity to not try and change everything all at once and to go for a 10 out of 10, but to look at how we can just keep moving forward incrementally. Okay, so that's when we're thinking about ourselves. That's this bit of burnout. So I want you to now think about preventing burnout within your workplace, and what is within your control, and that piece is really, really key. So there will be things that are absolutely in your direct control. There will be things that are not in your control, but you might be able to influence them. You might be able to have a conversation with your peers or with your leader about what you might be able to change. And then there will be things that are totally out of your control. And it's thinking about, okay, those are the things where I need to work out how I can accept those and then just keep my focus back on what is within my control. So what I'd just like you to think about, looking at this model of demands and resources, what might be within your control to change within the workplace? What might be some things that following this session you think, yeah, there's something that I need to go back and think about? And I've put together some questions as well that can be helpful. So some coaching questions on that side of demands and resources. So on the resource side, thinking what's in your control around your team feeling that they're appreciated, thinking about what support they might need, thinking about the little things that make a big difference. People often say to me, the thing that makes the biggest difference is someone saying hello to me or someone checking in to see how I am. So actually, so often we underestimate how powerful some of those small support elements are. And then on the demand side, understanding what those challenges are for your teams, helping them to hold healthy boundaries. So understanding what their boundaries might be. So what do they need in order to perform really highly and stay well? Is it something about their working hours? Is it something about I don't know, the pattern of the work, the way that they're delegated to? So just, these are some ideas, but I'd love to hear in the chat let me go back to this other slide. What does this make you think about? The things that collectively we need to be thinking about when it comes to our workplaces. What kind of things do you think could help in the workplace to prevent burnout? Nice, Philip. So clear decision making and good communication. Absolutely. So what we know, again, from the psychological research, is one of the greatest challenges for us as individuals in organizations is uncertainty. Our minds do not like uncertainty. So the more clarity that we're able to get, the greater the communication. I'm always, when I'm working with leaders, I'm like, you're probably, quite far ahead than your team. So you've already had time to get used to a lot of the stuff that might be happening. So often we communicate thinking that people know what we know. So yeah, communicate more than you think that you need to communicate. Have a shared common goal. Yeah, absolutely, Emma. So purpose is a really key thing of motivation, but also when we're thinking about that, helping people not to get into that cynicism and detached place, if they've got clarity around what the shared purpose is, they're much more likely to stay connected to their work. Yeah, support and understanding from your manager. Absolutely. What do we say? People leave managers, they don't leave jobs. So support and understanding, you know, like I say, checking in, asking how you are, and providing support when needed is really important. Yep, helping people feel valued through feedback, recognition, and praise. Absolutely. And again, when you're really busy, that can go off the radar, can't it? Because you're all focused on, let's just get the stuff done. But as we can see, that can be really helpful to keep people feeling resourced themselves. I love that, Neil. So teamwork. So my weakness is covered by another team member's strength. Absolutely. And I do feel like there's this collectiveness around burnout prevention as well. I feel like, you know, when we're really busy, it's the team meetings that go, isn't it? It's those conversations which aren't about direct work that go. And actually, that collective conversation of, you know, what are we all struggling with? Is there anything that we can redistribute, or how can we support each other to stay well? It feels like it's really important. Jackie says, be flexible with staff, get them to take rest when needed, and practice what I preach. I love that you've raised that, Jackie. So in the NHS, I work with so many leaders who will say to their teams, I want you to take breaks. I don't expect you to be replying to messages late at night and weekends. And then what do? They do it themselves. So they don't take breaks, and they're replying to messages and emails at weekends and evenings. And the issue is that we want people to have integrity, don't we? And it's not like we're purposefully acting outside integrity, but when we don't do what we say that you should do, people can sniff it out. So they won't do what you say, they will copy what you do. And I think with the replying at all hours of the day and the weekends as well. So I am all for flexible working. Absolutely. If you work different hours and you work flexibly, but as a manager, I think there's something about thinking about the time that you're responding and whether you can do delayed send, or, you know, make it clear that you're not expecting response. I think even though we might say to our teams, I'm not expecting you to respond at 10 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning, I think we can actually protect them from even having to make that choice by doing delayed send with our messages. I think there are definitely things that we can do. I'm not saying, again, you know, we're doing it secretly, doing all this extra work, but I think if we're working flexibly, we can think about what the impact might be. Neil, work on effective policies and procedures which protect staff from the common stresses. Yes. So what I would love is teams to come together and go, okay, right, you know, we're experiencing stress. We know that these are the types of things that stress us out. This isn't a new thing for us. Let's have a look at what we can do about our systems and the way that we do things that can help protect us. So is there something that we need to change about rotas? Is there something that we need to change about some expectations about reply times for things? Do we need to look at, you know, this whole like meeting to meeting, back to back madness? Like, when are we supposed to actually do the work? No wonder people are working evenings and weekends, because they're on the screen. for the core working hours. But yeah, bringing in policies where we only are on the screen for 50 minutes rather than an hour, so that people can at least go to the bathroom or grab some food. So yeah, there are definitely getting together. But again, it's that we have to make time for conversation, and we have to look at what we can do collectively together. So that's it from me. Thank you so much. I mean, that's a very quick kind of introduction to burnout. If you've got any questions, please do contact me on my website, which is Hazel Anderson-Turner, all one word. Maybe Joe will put it into the chat. I have some free downloads, and one of them is a burnout ebook, which talks about how you can use that scale with your team. You can find me on LinkedIn and subscribe to my monthly newsletter. But if you've got any questions as well, I'd be really happy if you want to drop me a line. I will put my email address in there as well.
What I'll do, Hazel, is I'll add your website to the follow-up email that I'm going to send out, and your contact details, so candidates have got it as well.
Okay, that's great. But are there any questions? Anything burning from I feel like I did a big burnout dump on you, so maybe you're a little bit in kind of like, ooh. And I would say as well, sometimes when I'm doing this type of session, I get people that are suddenly like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's me. I'm remembering that your stress hormones will be crowding out your oxytocin. Please go and talk to someone. If this has suddenly made you think, oh my gosh, this is me. So please talk to a trusted colleague, your manager. I mean, if you're feeling like you're really close to third-degree burnout, then definitely your GP. But please don't suffer alone. Oh, question. No problem, Jackie. Thank you. Do you feel someone can come back from burnout, or should they just leave the organization if culture they're unlikely to change much? So it will really depend on what the causes of burnout were for that person, and whether the change can happen both in the individual and the context. So it sounds like you're talking about someone who maybe there's a value mismatch. So I think there's an exploration whether for the individual, whether they're able to live their own value and remain in the organization. And then there's that bigger piece, because I think what we hear a lot with burnout is people will take some time off, get some rest, and then they'll come back, nothing's changed. So 6 months, 12 months later, they burn out again. So there has to be a discussion about the culture of the organization and what can change, and will that change enough for them to be able to stay okay within that organization. Toxic organization value following acquisition. Yeah. And again, it's whether it is a short-term stressor, that first-degree burn. It's a period of, actually, this is just an unpleasant period. Stuff's going on, and actually, I can see through the other side that maybe I could fit. Maybe I feel like I could influence the culture and fit into the organization long term, or whether they feel like, yeah, actually, the organization as it is and how I think it's going to go on and what it says is important doesn't align with my values. Therefore, I am going to keep burning out if I stay in that culture. Great. Any other questions about burnout? Oh, do I think conflict resolution training? So yeah, I mean, so when we're thinking about, I guess it goes in that element of values conflicts, but I think relationships are again one of those demands that can absolutely impact our experience of work. When we go into the workplace and we're feeling stressed because we're having to work with people where there's conflict, then that could be something that leads to burnout. So I think that kind of training could be helpful, and obviously things like mediation and stuff, that anything that can help relationships, I think could be helpful. Sometimes we're so conflict averse that we would say yes to doing extra work. Yeah, so I would say maybe the training is more about boundaries. So if you're afraid of conflict, then because you want to say yes, then I think training around how we create and hold boundaries and how we're able to effectively say no, or not now, or yes, I can do that thing, but what it's going to mean is this other thing isn't going to happen. So learning the language of not saying an immediate yes. And my biggest tip for that, if you're a person who finds that, well, for whatever reason, sometimes it's about our conditioning as children, our personality, that we like to people please, because it's a cultural thing. There can be so many reasons why we give immediate yeses. My top tip, although I said earlier about people giving tips, but I'm going to give one, is pause. Find a way to pause before you say yes to something. So when you get that email request that comes in, Hazel, can you pick up this thing? Just walk away, do something else, and then come back and think, if I say yes to that, what am I going to have to say no to? What's the piece of work that I'm not going to get to? Or what's the piece of work that I'm going to end up doing this evening or at the weekend because I said yes to this thing? What is the impact? What is the real impact of me saying yes to this before I respond? And I think that's one of the best things that we can do for ourselves if we find that we get in that pattern of saying yes. On my website, there is another ebook that's about boundary setting, and where I talk about setting boundaries between managers and their teams, because I feel that supporting people to be able to say no or to not say an immediate yes shouldn't just be on the individual's shoulders. I think as managers and leaders, there's a responsibility that we help each other to hold our boundaries, knowing that a lot of people will say yes to requests, even if it means that it has an adverse impact on their well-being. Okay. Having experienced burnout, I now have anxiety triggered by similar work stresses in my daily life. Is there a way forward to overcome this? Okay. So obviously this is moving more into the therapeutic space. So I would always recommend, if you're finding something that just isn't moving forward, you can work with a specialist coach like me, or you can work with a therapist to work on those things. But what it is your mind understandably going, warning, warning, it is absolutely trying to keep you safe because it's trying to protect you. We don't want this burnout to happen again. So it absolutely makes sense that you would get that sense of anxiety. And yeah, so I would say look at whether you can work with someone around that anxiety, whether that's a therapist or a coach. My absolute favorite book, so the approach that I take is called Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. And my favorite book is called The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris. And so if you experience those kind of feelings, so your mind not being so helpful, that is a really great book, which I will put in the chat. That is a really great book that can help you. Happiness Trap. But I think even seeing that anxiety as something, a part of you that is trying to keep you safe, I think can be maybe a helpful starting point. Anything else? Oh, I'll put in the habit book as well. Tiny habits. Anything else? No. Jo, did you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, I'll just do the close. Thank you. Okay, so thanks very much to everybody for joining the event. I'm sure that you'll have enjoyed it. There was lots of information there and some great tips there from Hazel, so thanks very much. I will send out a correspondence to everyone that signed up for the event this afternoon, and I'll put a post on LinkedIn. If you would like a copy of the recording and all the slides, then please put a comment against the LinkedIn post. Our next event is on next Wednesday, the 24th of January, at 12:30, and is called Avoiding Grievances and Tribunals, the Lost Art of Conversation. Details about how to sign up for this will be included in the email. We'll also send out a quick feedback survey to everyone that's signed up. So if you do have a couple of minutes to complete it, then it would be appreciated. If anyone is recruiting, we've got accountancy recruit, FD recruit and exec recruit within the group. But otherwise, I'd just like to say a massive thanks to Hazel for your time and effort in putting the event together, and also to everybody for tuning in. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you.